Genesis 41, and it came to pass at the end of 2 full years. Remember, Joseph is in jail for no reason. I understand that one really well. He did nothing wrong, but he's in jail because his boss's wife lied about him. And he told the butler, he said, hey, tell the guy, tell Pharaoh, come talk to me, get me out of here. And he said, oh yeah, I'll do it. But he forgot about him. Spent 2 extra years in jail for nothing, right? Because somebody forgot to do their job. And Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came out of the river 7 well-favored kine. Now a kine is a cow, okay? And fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, skinny, bad-shaped cows. And stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. So Pharaoh dreams, and he sees 7 skinny cows and 7 fat cows, and the skinny cows eat up the fat cows. And he wakes up like, what is this? And he slept and dreamed a second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. Now, corn in the Bible usually means wheat or some kind of grain. That's just the word they use for that, okay? And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So he dreamed a second time. 7 ears of corn, probably wheat or something, and the skinny ones came up after them, 7 of them. And it came to pass in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise guys. And Pharaoh told them his dream, and there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. This is the butler, that should have said this 2 years ago. Oh, I remember, I was supposed to do this. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. Now, since he's talking in second person, it must be a new Pharaoh by now. I don't know. But he said, Pharaoh was wroth, and he put me in ward. So I'm assuming it had a change of Pharaoh. And we dreamed a dream, I in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man, an Hebrew. So Joseph is still a young man. Would have been about 28 at the time. Servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man, according to his dream, he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged, just like Joseph said would happen. Now remember, Joseph had dreams earlier about, all the sheaves bowing down to him when he was 17 years old. He's getting pretty good at this dream stuff and interpreting it. And Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, I heard about you, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. So watch what Joseph does. This is critical. And Joseph answered Pharaoh and said, it's not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Look, any talents you have, somebody starts bragging about how good you are at ABC or whatever, you better say, look, that's a gift from God. God will give you an answer. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored. He's repeating the dream. And they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean flesh, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. So he's describing the skinny cows eating up the fat cows. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them. But they were still ill-favored as at the beginning, so I awoke. And I saw in my dream, behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good, and behold, 7 ears, withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, and there was none that could declare it unto me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. Now keep in mind, twice now Joseph has told him God's doing this. This is the Pharaoh who probably worships 10 or 15 different gods. They had all kinds of different gods. But he's talking about the only true God. There can only actually be one God by definition. So Joseph tells Pharaoh about, oh, God showed you what's going to happen. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is 1. God repeated this to you twice in 2 different ways, so you'll get it. There's going to be 7 good years. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. 3 times he talked to him about God. And when you get an opportunity to talk to anybody, you should talk to him about God. Nothing else is going to matter one day. Behold, there came 7 years of great plenty throughout all. There come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. You know, the same thing happens to us. Things can be going great for years, and when one bad thing's happen, you forget about all the good stuff that happened to you, and all you can think about is the bad. How many know what I'm talking about? You been there? Done that? And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Now hold it. Pharaoh didn't ask Joseph what to do about it. He just said, what's the dream mean? Joseph is going right on into phase 2. Well, Pharaoh, here's what the dream means, and here's what you better do about it. Whoa, who gave him that authority? Maybe God said, you better tell this man. He needs a little guidance here. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part, 20%, in the land of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the good food of those good years that come, and lay up corn up under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Said Pharaoh, good times are here, you better save up. So get 20% of everybody's crops. Save it up. Then that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt. Now hold it. If they're only going to save back 20% for 7 years, and then pay it back out for 7 years, apparently the people are able to live on 20%. So they're making 80%, they're wasting 80% of what they bring in. So if they're bringing in, $100 a week, and they could live on 20, they could have saved their own 20 too, given Pharaoh $20 and kept their 20. No, they apparently spent it all, because when the bad times came, they had nothing. So when good times come, you better save up. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? Capital G. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Anna, I told him about discretion and wisdom and the difference, didn't I? You don't want me to repeat all that, do you? Okay. I think it's hilarious. I'll tell you afterward. Huh?
No, moving right along.
Moving along, okay. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. They found an inscription under one of Pharaoh's statues. This base statue of Pharaoh Zoser, something like that. I forget how to pronounce it. It's spelled several different ways, the English phonetical spelling of the guy's name. With the name Imhotep. First after the king among his many titles. Most people who study this think Joseph is actually listed in the Egyptian records as Imhotep. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I set thee over the land of Egypt. When Pharaoh sets you up over the land of Egypt, you're fine. He said, yep, I'm going to put you. He took the ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. Made him vice Pharaoh, or whatever they call him, okay, assistant Pharaoh. No, and he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Joseph was the straightest man in the Bible. Pharaoh made a ruler out of him. That's a joke, Hannah. Okay. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. You're going to have complete control over everybody. Now, the Bible says in Psalm 75, promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but God is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another. Jesus said, when you go to a feast, go sit at the lowest place, not the highest place. People that try to exalt themselves, it says so in Matthew 23, he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. And he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. You wait and let God exalt you when it's his time. You just humbly do your job, and God will come along, and it'll happen. It says that in Proverbs 25. Put not forth thyself in the presence of the king. Don't try to be noticed. And stand not in the place of great men. For better it is that it be said unto thee, come up hither, than that thou shouldst be put lower in the presence of the prince, whom thine eyes have seen. When I go speak at churches, I don't go sit on the platform. I sit in the audience. If the preacher's ready, come on up and sit up here. I'm the guest speaker. It's okay. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down in the pew. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. Imagine that kid in kindergarten trying to spell that. What's your name? Zaphnath-Paneah. Can you spell it? No. No, nobody can. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharan, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Joseph went from a prisoner, and his life was looking really dismal. He'd been 13 years now in prison, or captivity. And in one day, he's exalted to vice pharaoh and married to a princess. Bang! Life turned around completely in one day, like, whoa, what happened here? God can do that. He can take the lowly and exalt it, but wait till he does it. They found inscriptions, Zaphnath-Paneah, which means Joseph, and some of the same symbols. I don't read Egyptian, that's for sure. I don't see how they read it. But Imhotep's inscription, as seen on the rocks, Ptah. So this is Imhotep, which is Joseph. And that was their symbol, the hawk and whatever they have there, all this kind of stuff. So most people who study this, you can just Google Imhotep or Joseph. Who was that in Egypt? It was this Imhotep, listed in the Egyptian records. And he was the guy who started the pyramid construction business, building the pyramid, so according to tradition. Now, some of the scoffers will say, well, the Egyptian king list, all 30 of these dynasties, stretches back way before the flood in the days of Noah, so this proves the Bible is wrong. No, they have a problem with the Egyptian king list, okay? Many problems with it. Many times there are overlapping reigns, where one guy is king, but anoints his son to be king. So the dad still counts those years as his reign, even though the son is also now king. So they have overlapping reigns, but most of the traditional Egyptian chronologies, they put them end to end. That's how they stretch it back too far, instead of overlapping reigns. You could do the same with American history. Didn't we have a civil war when we had President Jefferson Davis? Was he the president of the South? There was also a president of the North called Abraham Lincoln. Should we put them end to end or overlapping? Think about it, okay? That's what with the Egyptian thing. Simultaneous reigns. Sometimes they're both king at the same time. Sometimes they're exaggerated reigns. All this stuff is covered. This is an excellent book. If you get one book, it's like a mini encyclopedia. Nearly 1,000 pages. What's $11? No, anyway, this is called the Evolution Handbook. There's a whole section in here, 4 or 5 sections about this exaggeration and problems with the Egyptian king list. Don't let anybody tell you the Bible is not true because of the Egyptian king list. That's been thoroughly discredited. Manthos list is the one, has all kinds of overlapping dates that he puts end to end. Don't trust him. You can also get the book After the Flood. Talks about the Saxons in England, how their genealogy goes all the way back to Adam. The English have a record of it. Anglo-Saxons do. The Norwegians and Danes have a list that go back to Noah. It's all in this book right here. Did we sell this one?
No.
We should. This is excellent. We should get some. We should sell a bunch of books. First, we got to pay off all the bills, and then we got to build our. It's coming. Okay. Anyway, Imhotep, Joseph in Egypt. In 1890, Charles Wilbur discovered this boulder on the Isle of Sahal at the Nile, telling the story of Imhotep. And it says he was second in command to Pharaoh. Imhotep. During the 3rd dynasty, Imhotep was the aide of Pharaoh Zoser. Now here it's spelled Z-O-S-E-R. He was the architect and physician. Later became a deity of wisdom and medicine. He began the pyramid building tradition. This is what this says on the internet. I don't know. There's books about him. Imhotep. This is Joseph. There's even games you can buy to show how to build different pyramids. Roll the dice and build a pyramid or something. I don't know what the game is. I just saw it. Thought, that's pretty cool. Let's play Imhotep. Okay? Anyway, Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Now, how old was he when his brothers sold him? 17. He's now 30. He spent 13 years wondering, where's my life going anyway? What did I do wrong? I was a good boy to my dad, and my brothers beat me up and threw me down the pit and sold me. I was good to Potiphar, and his wife lied about me. Lord, I'm trying to do right. And that's all you got to keep your eye on for the rest of your life. Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Joseph's life turned around in one day. I mean, completely turned around. What was he? He's probably down there talking to the prisoners, wondering, well, the guy forgot me for 2 years. All of a sudden, they get a knock on the prison door. Hey, shave, take a bath, get some clothes on. Pharaoh wants to see you. Oh, no. What did I do now? And instead, he gets promoted, vice Pharaoh. So and Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. He traveled around, wanted to see the place. Remember, all he had seen of Egypt in 13 years was inside of a prison, brought down there in handcuffs. And the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. Now this is interesting. Where are you going to store all this stuff? You got bags and bags and mountains and truckloads of grain for 7 years. The food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. Did you know they have discovered all over Egypt the pits are still there? They carved them into solid rock, the grain pits. South end of the step pyramid complex, there's some pits down there. They had stairs in them. They stored the grain in these the pits are still there, and most of the Egyptians have no clue what they're for. There's the big grain pits built by Joseph nearly 4,000 years ago. Stairs to go down in there to pick up the grain. Stairs on the other side to come out. Carved right into the rock. Remember, everybody in Egypt had to obey Joseph. Everybody. I'm sure he just got some folks and said, you come with me, I want you to carve a hole in this rock 40 feet deep. No problem. Yes, sir. You try to carve a hole in a rock, Anyway, and unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharon, priest of On, bare unto him. So he gets to marry the princess girl, and he now has 2 sons. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. Hey, when God takes us to heaven, all of this down here is going to be forgotten. You might go through some horrible persecution. You might get your head chopped off. You might have some real bad times coming. We're headed for 7 years of tribulation, and I used to teach we're getting out of here before that. It's not true. We're going to be here for the tribulation. And Jesus said in Luke 18:8, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Is there going to be anybody left alive serving me? It says in Daniel, what really got me curious, we have one of the small charts. Would you get the verses on the back? Hannah, if you could get one. The big chart here behind me, $25, goes along with my book, What on Earth is About to Happen. I had one of the small ones here.
I think it's right there.
No, that's somebody sent me Bible from an ancient Bible, pages out of a Bible. Anyway, on the back, I was reading Daniel chapter 7, and it got me really confused for a while I was in prison, reading this chapter, like, what does this mean, Lord? The saints are prevailed against. So I lined up all the verses in Daniel. Thank you, ma'am. I copied pages out of the Bible and cut them up into strips. Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 has 3 columns on the back. This chart is $10 if you want to get the same small chart here and the verses on the back. But it says in Daniel 7:17, the great beasts which are 4 kings which shall arise out of the earth, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom. Okay. Then I read it again in Daniel 7:19. The fourth beast was diverse. I lined up every place where it talks about this fourth beast. The four beasts or the fourth beast. I happen to think it's probably Islam. That's probably the fourth beast we shall see, mentioned in Daniel 7. But then, I tell you what, it's a little better color coordination in my book, actually. I didn't have to get the chart after all, but we changed the color to make it a little more visible for the book I wrote. Here we go. The four, Daniel 7. Will it focus? No, I guess not. The four great beasts, the fourth beast, and the saints take the kingdom. But in between, in this one, all of a sudden it inserts this yellow passage. This yellow one is inserted in here. Let me read it to you. It's Daniel 7:21. And I beheld the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. I thought, now wait a minute. In the last one, back in verse 18, it said the saints are going to take the kingdom. Yeah, but before the saints take the kingdom, we get prevailed against. He's going to win. Daniel 7, verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. We're going to get worn out. During this time of tribulation, there's a great falling away. People are going to quit. People you never dreamed would quit are going to quit. Shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand, until a time and times and the dividing of a time. I think most people that study this agree that time means a year. So time and times, that's 3 years, and the dividing of a time, 3.5 years. For 3.5 years, we're going to get worn out, prevailed against, and we're going to be given into his hand. I'm sorry, I didn't write the book. That's what it says is going to happen. And then we're going to take the kingdom. The saints of the Most High take the kingdom. Verse 20, 18, 22, 27. That's the purple part here. The saints take the kingdom after the tribulation. So my job, somebody asked me today, they called me today while I was driving somewhere, and they said, why do some of these great preachers still teach the pre-trib rapture? I said, well, I think probably they really honestly believe it. I believed it for 40 years. I said, but some may teach it because that's what their people want to hear. Itching ears. They heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. Please tell me what I want to hear. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to be good. No problem. Oh, good. Here's my money. No, I'm sorry. It's not going to be good. Now, don't confuse tribulation, which is what the world does to us, and they've always done to Christians, and Jesus said would happen. Don't confuse that with wrath. We're not here when the wrath of God falls. Wrath is what God does to the world. We're out of here for that. But we're here for this. So get ready. Anyway, so he said, God, make me forget all my toil. And if you go through some tough times coming soon, even if you have really tough times, or get killed, or starve to death, or whatever's going to happen, I don't know. The second you're in heaven, you're going to forget it all. He's going to wipe away all tears. Then he's going to have to wipe away our memory too, I think, on some things. And then, wow, look where we are. When I look upon his face, he's named the boy Manasseh. Every time he called him Manasseh, it would remind him, wow, God took away all my toil. The name of the kid would remind him. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful. Ephraim means fruitful. Man, he never dreamed he'd have 2 kids of his own. He spent 13 of his prime years in prison. From 17 to 30, when most people are getting married, having kids. Now, Joseph, he's sitting in a prison cell. God caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Verse 53. And the 7 years of plenteousness there was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come. I think we are just about to the end of the time of America's prosperity, folks. It's going to be a time of dearth, and it's going to get bad. Just buckle up, hang on. According as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. Well, how come they had bread in Egypt? Because they had a warning. And they got ready. They did something about it. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph, what he says to you, do it. Jesus' mother said the same thing about Jesus in John chapter 2 at the wedding. Hey, whatever he tells you to do, you do it. Great advice. Just whatever he says to do, you do it. Best advice in the world. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. Not only did he save the Egyptian population from starvation, Joseph, by his foresight, planning ahead, thinking ahead, he was able to get all the money of all the surrounding nations too. Egypt became incredibly wealthy because of Joseph, because of this dream. He saw what was coming and he did something about it. We need to, the Bible says, a wise man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. Look ahead. Like the story, 2 men walked into a bar. The third one ducked. Yeah. Look and see what's coming. Watch where you're going.